You're live.
We're live now?
We're live.
Hey everybody. I'm Rich Chizmar. I'm sitting here at Cemetery Dance. I've been signing books for about the last half an hour. And you're going to join me for the next hour. And Billy Chizmar will ask me any questions that you guys type in. And in the meantime, you get to sign some books with me. So hopefully Chizmar will ask.
That's
It's going to take a minute for people to start filtering.
Oh.
Yeah, if you need anything.
will do. Alright. Hello, Jason. We've got 24 viewers already.
Nice. Billy, why don't you give him a close-up of what my signature
Sure. Yeah, I'll take this book.
that you've just been making fun of.
Waiting to see if that'll actually, if that's actually good in frame, but there's the signature.
Yeah, you can see it.
I don't know how audible I was that far from the camera. Yeah, more people coming in.
So just to give you the basics, Gwendy's Button Box, the original publication date was May 30th, but our printer was able to beat that date by several weeks. So we're going to ship on May 16th, which will coincide with Simon & Schuster's audio release on the same day. So a week from tomorrow, these should all be in bookstores. Should be shipping from Amazon and Barnes & Noble and everywhere else. We'll be shipping our copies this week so that they will arrive next week.
And you got a question here. Can you tell us about the writing process you and Stephen King went through to craft Gwendy's Button Box?
Sure. Steve sent me the first chunk of the story. It's a story that he wrote earlier last year, and he just couldn't quite get the ending for. So he sent me the first chunk of pages. I think it was about 25 pages. Over the course of like 3 or 4 days, I wrote another like 10,000 words. It kind of came just flying out of me. And I sent those back to Steve. And that took us to probably about 2/3 of the way through the story, if not maybe 3/4. And then Steve added a couple thousand words, sent it back to me. I worked on the ending. It was a really dark ending originally, which we decided to tweak some. So Steve took a pass at that, and then I took a pass. So essentially, we just played ping pong back and forth with drafts, maybe 3 or 4 times. But it was exactly 30 days from the day that Steve sent me the first file and the day that we finished our final polishes. It was 30 days from start to finish.
And we also got asked if they could see the title page,
Oh, sure.
just with you and King's name on it. That good distance, I think.
Yeah, it's not showing yet, though, but it will.
It's delayed.
Yeah.
There's a 30-second delay.
By the way, everybody, if anybody has any questions for Brian Freeman today, he's right here in the office with me.
Nope, he didn't come in.
He's camera shy.
And then, are you doing any other Barnes & Noble signings?
I probably will. I just haven't, I've been asked to do several others in different states. It's just a matter of trying to figure out my schedule and figure out when I can and when I can't. But I think I will be doing several others.
We got asked specifically about Virginia Beach.
Virginia Beach would be awesome. Yeah, I mean, that would be great if I could do Virginia Beach. I know I've been asked to New York and several other East Coast states, so it'd be great if I could do that.
And this was a story that he had just started to write, right? It wasn't one of his older stories that he put on the back burner?
Yeah, no. I mean, I've had people say that before, that that they thought this was, 10, 20-year-old story, and no, it was a story that he specifically started, I think in the fall or summer of 2016, and then like I said, he just kind of blanked on the ending and set it aside and worked on other things. So it was totally by chance that I happened to ask him one day about collaborations, and not in the not in the angle of, hey, let's do something together at all, because I wouldn't even think to ask Steve that. We just talked about collaborations and round robins and that kind of thing, and then next thing you know, he mentioned the story, and it showed up the next day.
A lot of questions coming in now. People are flooding in.
Yeah, I know you can't get all of them, so just whatever you can.
That's okay. How awesome was it to get to go back and revisit Castle Rock?
It was awesome. It was scary. It was, I can't even say it was a dream come true, because I never dreamed that big that I could do that, that I would have the opportunity to do that. That was the neat thing about it. He sent me the story. I received the story when I was on my way to Billy's hockey game on a Friday night, and it was a file attached that said Gwendy, and then there was a note in the email that read, do whatever you want with it. So we pulled over at the ice skating rink, and I started reading the story, and right from the first sentence or second sentence, I believe, it says, Castle Rock, and I just stopped and took a deep breath and kept on reading. It was that made it even more special, if that's possible. Castle Rock is such a huge part of Stephen King's history that going back there was amazing.
Are you guys going to be doing any events together, you and King?
I don't know. We've been invited to do some things. I think Steve's probably going to be really busy in the fall with Owen and doing Sleeping Beauty, promotions. So, I don't know. Do I think eventually something might pop up? Sure, but I think those guys are going to be busy with promoting the Scribner edition of Sleeping Beauties, and I think that's going to take the bulk of Steve's 2017 appearances.
We got some viewers from Germany too.
Cool.
Right now, that's pretty awesome. Are you shipping the signed copies to PS Publishing this week too?
All the retailers will go out this week and next week, so yeah, they'll be getting their copies. For people who don't know, PS Publishing is Pete Crowther's operation over in England, and he does amazing books, does an amazing service selling other publishers' books, and Pete is a heck of a writer too. If you haven't, I figure most of you have read him by now, but if you haven't, you've got to grab him and do it.
How has the web traffic been for Cemetery Dance, inquiries for Cemetery Dance been ever since this got announced?
Hey Brian, you can answer that. I know everything has, anytime you do something Stephen King related, you experience an increase of web traffic and inquiries, that kind of thing. But because this one kind of involved, Cemetery Dance in a more personal way, because I was a co-writer, I know it's had, it's held some extra interest for people, and we've had a lot of press inquiries. We've gained a lot of new readers, and certainly no one was knocking down my door to come do signings and that sort of thing before this book. So yeah, it's definitely shown an increase.
Question for you, Mr. Brian. Do you have any clues who the next authors in the next Dark Scream series are going to be?
No.
No clues.
Brian says no. Easy enough.
How did Cemetery Dance go from a magazine to a full-fledged publishing company?
I started the magazine in 1988, and we started the books in 91, and it was a similar transition to when we first started the magazine. I started the magazine because I had heard about David Silva and how he was essentially a one-man operation behind the Horror Show magazine, and I thought, if he can do that, hey, maybe I can do something of quality myself. And then 3 years into the business, I immersed myself in the small press world. I discovered all these small book publishers: Dark Harvest, Zizing Books, Borderlands Press, Tom Monteleone, another guy from here in Baltimore. And I remember getting a copy of Tom's first book, The Magic Wagon, and a copy of Zizing's edition of Book of the Dead. And I remember thinking, God, this is something I'd really like to try. And then from a business sense, I also was semi-smart enough to figure out that that even though the investment was a lot bigger in the book world, the profit margin was actually significantly bigger than the magazine itself. So that kind of explains the transition. But as far as the hows and the whys, the nuts and bolts of it, I just, the same thing that I did with the magazine. I just said, why not? And kind of jumped in and did my homework. We started with Ed Gorman's Prisoners and Other Stories, which we couldn't have, picked a better book to launch with. Dean Koontz did the introduction, and Ed was, as he always was a sweetheart, and it immediately put us on the map as a serious publisher of small press books, and did really well for us too.
How was it writing in another author's world?
Well, that's the interesting thing is I've had people ask me if I actually felt intimidated or restricted because I was writing, in Castle Rock, and
Let me take these in there.
you can leave them there for now, but and that's the thing. I mean, when you get down to it, I mean, that's one of the beauties of Castle Rock, and I think that's probably the attraction for so many people is. And Steve agreed with me when I said this in a previous interview. Is Castle Rock is kind of that every town. It reminded me a lot of the small town I grew up in, Edgewood. It has its good parts, its bad parts, its good people, its bad people. It's got its stories behind a lot of different parts of the town. But there really were no rules for me to follow in that world, in that town. I've said it was more about me wanting to do the place justice and me really, wanting to honor Castle Rock is sacred ground for all Stephen King readers. So I just really wanted to do it justice, and I wasn't too concerned with any rules to follow or anything like that. I had complete freedom to do what I wanted to do, and I think that showed in the storytelling. It just, we kind of blended really well, and just some people said, hey, you could set this story somewhere else, and that's the truth, but it wouldn't be the same story. There's a lot of little Easter eggs here from the past, and it's kind of neat to see that.
That was another question, if there were any Easter eggs related to Castle Rock.
Oh yeah. There's several things that we put in there, and that was one of the neat things about the writing process is I've heard from some of the advanced readers that, they know Steve wrote this part because it mentioned this, or they know I wrote this part because it has a Baltimore Orioles hat, or, that kind of thing. But we had fun playing around with things, I'm babbling here because I just had to read a note, but we had free reign with each other's work. So he tweaked me in a lot of places, sometimes with a wink of the eye, and I did the same thing to him. So ask as many questions as you want. Just don't ask me when a certain book's due, because I'll have to call Brian in for that, because I don't know the publication schedule as well as all the rest of these guys do. But feel free to ask as many questions as you want. I'm going to continue to sign books. I think I will probably be doing this for the next 2 or 3 days. I have, I think it was 4,200 or something like that. It was over 4,000 copies to sign. Billy came in this morning and thought I just had to sign what was on the table. And we all laughed at him and showed him the pallet in the warehouse that is still stacked with boxes. So I'll be doing this for a while, and I'm not complaining at all, folks. I'm happy to do it, and it's like I said, it's a dream come true, and happy to be in the position to do this.
How many rejections did you get before you sold your first story?
You know what? I never counted exactly. I know I got pretty lucky and sold my first story fairly quickly, and then the rejections came after that. But I know I found a box in my garage probably 10 months ago, and it actually found some early stories too, which led to Darkness Whispers and a few other collaborations I did. But yeah. I had a big file in there of rejections, and there were hundreds, so I would guess, a handful before the first, and then many, many, many dozens after the first. Those were the good old days, going to my mailbox in college to open responses. You had to put the self-addressed stamped envelope in with your submission, and then they mailed you back. This was before email, folks. So you would go to your mailbox, and it was a little bit like an Easter egg hunt. You found some good things in there, and then you got shut out on other days.
Do you know the CD cast off the top of your head?
The what?
Oh, no, they want everyone else to make a quick appearance. Brian, Mindy.
Oh yeah, I agree. I don't know if who's here and who's not here, but I'll actually step out and move some of these books. And hey, Brian. Brian might be conveniently ignoring me, but now here he is. I'll let Brian.
I want to see you and Mindy and everyone else on camera.
Oh, too bad the camera's pointed right there.
I think Mindy stepped out, but there's Brian. Step in, Brian.
No, I'm good.
Alright. There's a question for me, so I can step in really quick.
Good. You step in.
So while you're doing that, so one of the questions that was for me was, when and where can people read more from me? Me and my dad are working on a story together right now, a collaboration. And when is that?
The editor, Mark Parker, who's I know said he was coming on here today. He wants it as soon as possible, so we'll get to him next week.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so me and him are collaborating on that, and that should be done soon, out this summer. And then I wrote a scholarly essay, I guess, on Stephen King's Desperation, and that's coming out in Dad. When is that one coming out? In Reading Stephen King?
Also this summer.
Also this summer in Reading Stephen King, which Mr. Bryan's publishing, right? Or he's editing, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then my first story, The End, was in Dead Harvest.
Also by Mark Parker.
Also Mark Parker, yeah. So that's enough for me, I think. Back to the main event.
Cleared off the books now. I can
Do more.
make room for more.
We'll try and get Mindy and Brian and everyone else.
Brian is camera shy. Brian doesn't like doing appearances. But we'll try to convince him to.
Do you know when T-shirts for Gwendy's Button Box might reach Germany?
Oh no, we haven't shipped them yet, but I imagine they'll be shipping soon. And just keep watching the CD newsletter. We'll have updates in there about the T-shirts and the
It might fluctuate.
slipcases, that sort of thing.
By June, do you think?
Hopefully.
What hat do you most enjoy wearing? Author, editor, or running cemetery dance?
Right now, author, obviously. But I wore the running CD hat predominantly for so long, and it's been awesome to have such a good staff and to be able to take a step back from that, which I've done in a major way over the last couple of years, and return to writing. It's been nice to have that time and that freedom. I still enjoy the nuts and bolts of running CD, but I'm not really involved in the production, all of that, the stuff that's so time consuming, because I have awesome people like Brian and Kate and Mindy doing the production stuff, and then Dan is in charge of shipping in the warehouse and some of the marketing stuff, so it's just been a good setup.
Sorry if we were dropping frames. It's fixed now.
Okay.
It was stuttering.
Okay.
Too many people watching it.
Yeah, we got 60 viewers right now.
Cool.
How much of your personal history growing up in Edgewood goes into your writing?
A lot of it. If you read the story notes from my last collection along December, you'll see that a lot of it is set, based on childhood memories, some of our childhood stories that carried over onto paper. So yeah, a lot of growing up where I did and growing up the way I did which was, it was a different world than it is now. There weren't computers, there weren't really computer games until later on. So we were always outside. We were, every day was an adventure, and there was a lot of within our group. There was a lot of storytelling that went on. A lot of talking about what if this house was haunted and this had happened here and that kind of thing. So that has definitely carried over into a huge amount of my work, and I don't think I was even as aware of this, until I sat down to write those story notes. And I think I talk about it in there, I had no idea I had weeping willow trees in so many stories. But you know what? The house I grew up in had a big weeping willow tree in the side yard that was a big gathering place for all of us neighborhood kids. I didn't realize how many times I mentioned Hanson Road or Hanson Creek or Hanson this. And again, I grew up on the corner of Hanson and Tupelo. So, it played a huge part. And I am a nostalgic writer for better or for worse.
You have anything new that you're working on?
Yeah, I have some short story obligations, assignments that I need to meet deadlines for. Like you mentioned, Mark Parker is waiting for a collaboration from you and I about a haunted lighthouse for his anthology this summer. I have a few others that I need to do, and then I'm also working on a novel. I've been talking to agents over the last few weeks and trying to kind of settle on representation and also settle on what I want to write next. So I have some standalone ideas for a novel, and also I'd really like to expand the novella A Long December to a full-length novel version, and both of those, but that and the new novel, are something that I'll be working on a lot this summer.
If you had to pick any other author to collaborate with, who would it be?
Rick McCammon. I love all of his novels, but his novel Boy's Life is an absolute favorite, up there with It, Steve King's It, and I think Rick is just a natural storyteller, and I think that would be a blast. I don't expect that to ever happen, but that's my answer. Probably the second person, and I mentioned this recently in a print interview, would probably be Jack Ketchum, Dallas mayor. I'm just kind of fascinated by his economy of his language and the fact that his stories, they appear so kind of simple on the surface, but they're anything but, and I think that would be a challenge, and I'd probably drive him crazy with my extra verbiage, but that'd probably be my second choice. Is anyone counting how many books I've signed?
No, but
yeah, a lot.
You're getting up there. Good morning from California, from Mike Lemon.
Oh, hey, Mike, how you doing? Mike's a good guy. Wrote a fantastic review of A Long December for me, which I really appreciated.
What accomplishment in your entire life are you most proud of?
Probably you and Noah, my children. As far as a career thing, probably just the fact that Cemetery Dance has lasted for 30 years. I mean, we're one of the dinosaurs now, and we're still going strong and getting stronger, and still have a love for what we're all doing here, and we're doing it for the right reasons. And when I look back at that, there's a little bit of just disbelief and awe in the fact that we've been here for so long. It's I think most of the time I take it for granted. It's just a day at the office. It's just work, but sometimes you step back and you realize how lucky you are, and just the fact that we've outlived an awful lot of really great magazines and book publishers, and who just didn't have the same good fortune as we did, or didn't make the whatever it is, making the right marketing moves or whatever. But I know we're lucky to be here, and that's probably what I'm most proud of. Did I say Noah's name out loud, by the way? Because if I didn't, I'm going to hear about it from him later.
You did.
If I just said your brother.
You said Noah.
Okay, good. Yeah, Noah's at school right now, probably not happy.
Once you finish releasing the Doubleday series of King's First Books, will you release them again as a set?
Oh, I don't know. That's something we would have to talk to Steve and his reps about. We have some other projects in mind, and kind of just have to go from there. But we kind of, some of these projects aren't thought of that far ahead of time, just simply because we're so busy working what's currently on our plate. But the Doubleday series was something that Brian Freeman really believed in, and I think Steve's agent Chuck Varell would tell you that Brian was very persistent in staying in touch with him regarding this. And I actually remember the day I got the text from Brian saying it was an evening, and I was at Billy's football banquet several years ago, obviously, and Brian texted me and said, "Read your email," and there was a forwarded email from Chuck agreeing to do this. So yeah, the Doubleday series, thanks goes to Brian, because it was his baby, and he kind of bulldozed his way through it and got it going.
Is there any author you've always wanted to publish with Cemetery Dance that you've never had the chance to?
Brian, is there? Because, on the top of my head, I think we've published, and to some extent, we've published, whether it be a reprint or an original story or a book, or a reprint of a book. We've published, if you had asked that question 2 decades ago, it would be Ray Bradbury, and then we were fortunate enough to publish Ray, both originally and reprints. Clive and Peter Straub and Dean and all these guys, so no, I don't know. I mean, maybe I should have thought about that ahead of time, because there's got to be somebody, but like I said, we've been blessed, to be able to work with all the giants and all the up and comers and all the the voices that have kind of built this genre.
You excited for It and the Dark Tower movies coming up?
I am. I am perhaps the only person in the world who hasn't watched the trailers on purpose. I kind of want to go in to both of those blind, and without any preconceived notions of what it's going to be like. So yeah, I'm terribly excited. Both The Dark Tower and It. I mean, it maybe It a little bit more, just simply because it's my favorite book, and I love the television. The original, what was it, 2-parter, I think. But I do know that this one is set to be scarier, and I was fortunate enough to get a sneak peek at the script ahead of time. So yeah, I think it's going to be really good.
Anything you would do different in the development of Cemetery Dance?
Oh yeah, waste a lot less money on certain things and make a lot fewer mistakes. I talked about that in an interview recently too. We made just a million and one different mistakes, like any new business does. And when I say new, I'm counting for like the first decade. There was no roadmap to follow. I asked a lot of questions of folks like Dave Silva and Tom Monteleone and Mark Ziesing and anyone who would actually give me the time. But there's no handbook, so you kind of are out there on your own. And I just followed my heart and made plenty of mistakes, anywhere from overpaying an artist and then, taking 3 months to pay it off because you offered the guy too much in the first place, to, getting too much art for a book, to not getting enough art for a book, to signing up with the wrong distributor, to agreeing to to publish this book when you probably shouldn't have. So yeah, I mean, tons of mistakes, and I always say the good thing is it's just that we learn from them. We took a lot of punches, but we always knew we were going to be here. Some people will say, well, what's the difference? How did you kind of survive all that when others didn't? And the answer to that is just, we knew what else. I didn't know what else I was going to do. I was very focused and tunnel vision, to say the least. And I believed that eventually, it wasn't a matter of if we would be successful. It was just a matter of when. So, I was young. I wasn't married, didn't have kids, didn't have a mortgage. So I was in a unique position in that way. Worked hard in my 20s to set it up, and learn from those mistakes for sure. But I always make sure I tell people, if you know me, I'm not a businessman. I am not a super organized, guy with the 50-page business plan. I just followed my heart and did the work, and then got very good people to help us.
Is there anything you can reveal about the upcoming, about your guys' upcoming edition of The Stand?
Hey Brian, anything we can reveal about the upcoming edition of The Stand? Brian's ignoring me.
Have we announced the cover artist?
I don't think so. Can you hear Brian? Brian wants to say something.
Nope. No, I signed up for it.
Who's the artist?
It's Ned Damon. Ned Damon.
Oh, you could say that. Cover artist is going to be Ned Dameron, who did, and I might have just mispronounced his name, but he's best known for what? The Dark.
He did the third volume.
Yeah, I think he did the third volume of the Dark Tower art, and all the artists have done a fantastic job. But yeah, The Stand will be special. I know it's a lot of readers' favorite Stephen King book, so we're definitely going to make it special. And but before that, we're shipping the Shining soon, and I know I've seen everything for Night Shift, so we're rolling along with that series.
I'm excited for that Stand because I'm halfway through it right now.
Yeah, you're lucky. Billy's lucky in that he's read just a fraction of Steve's backlist, so he has all this stuff to experience for the first time. Oh yeah, here's
Whoa.
Here is which I think some people have seen, but I can't tell whether you can see it or not, but I'm sure you can. But this is the gift edition and you can see the color printing and this heavy paper stock, and it's just color art. There's the Overlook and its autumn glory. Yeah, these books are gorgeous. There's Danny, who you'll meet later, in Dr. Sleep. That's pretty gross, actually.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. So this is neat. This is for Joe Hill King, who shines on. Yeah, that's how we knew. And I guess probably most people read this in the last issue of Cemetery Dance about when Joe submitted a story to us under Joe Hill years ago, and I took the story out to Brian and I said, "Does this look familiar to you?" And we both realized immediately, based on that dedication, that Joe was Steve's son, and told Joe that. And then he said, "Well, I'm thrilled you like the story, but I can't let you publish it now because you know who I am." So we were bumming, but much respect to Joe for insisting on doing it under the radar and building a career, based on the Joe Hill name.
Question from Tom Noel.
Oh, my old neighbor.
Are you as cute in person as you are on Facebook?
I think you would be much better position to answer that question, Tom. Tommy grew up on Tupelo, like 3 houses up from me. Played a lot of games of wiffle ball with Tommy, jump ramps with Tommy, his brother Danny and Larry, and they are longtime Edgewood standouts and good friends, and we still need to go out and go to dinner or something, Tom. But Yeah, Tommy is part of a lot of those old stories. He once hit my best friend Jimmy in the face with a golf club by accident after telling him, "Back up, Jimmy. I'm fine. Back up, Jimmy." And he swung and nailed him in the face. And I'm fine. Jimmy had stitches in his jaw the next day. So.
Do you have a favorite author of any classic American or British literature?
Lord of the Flies, is that considered as classic? Because Golding, I love that book. That's always been top 3 up at the top of my list for me. I really like Last Mohicans and some of those, but yeah, most of it. I have to tell you, I was happy to be finished reading it, and I usually had a copy of either like a military history book or a Stephen King book inside my textbooks in school. When we were supposed to be doing scholastic reading, I was not doing that so much. And by the way, when you're like a really established author, I think you have someone like sliding the books to you. They open it for you and they slide it down the table before you can sign it really fast. Obviously, that's not me.
Yeah, I'm not doing that for you.
Nope.
Have you had much formal training in writing, like following outlines and such?
No, that's the interesting thing is my high school. I never had a writing class. I had a really good bunch of teachers, and I had an English teacher in particular, Richard Gallagher. I had him for sophomore and senior year English, and I certainly learned a lot about writing from him. But more than that, I learned love of reading, and he really identified the fact that I loved, to read, and cultivated that and encouraged it, and I owe him a lot for that. He's also the one who brought in the photocopies of the Monkey novella, and we read it out loud in class, and that was a life changer. That was in 10th grade, and I've noted that event many times, that it literally felt like he had opened a door for me into another world, and I just never looked back. But as far as writing classes, I had a creative writing class in college, and then I ended up majoring in journalism from the University of Maryland. But as far as fiction writing, very, very little. When I was starting out, I used to read a lot of the how-to books and all that, but it was really just trial and error and learning, reading a lot and kind of learning through the process. I'm not one of those people who looks down on writing classes. Some people say, oh, you have to be born with it. I think it's a little bit of both. You can certainly learn, and I think you learn from everywhere around you. I learned a lot from writing for film for 5 or 6 years about the economy of language and pacing and flow and rhythm, particularly the rhythm of the words.
That's what you always get on me about.
Yep, exactly. I mean, you've got to make these things kind of sing the best you can and flow as smoothly as you can, and that's what I kind of unconsciously do. But no, I not a lot of formal training, and I very rarely outline. I did outline the Long December novella, which probably helped. That it was the reason I think I wrote that in 10 days. It's 25,000 words, and I just, that kind of just flew, and that was one of the few pieces that I did outline. But other than that, I kind of just sit and go.
Any thoughts about opening other branches of cemetery dance?
Oh yeah, I mean, we've long talked about a few other ideas, and one of the things that I definitely plan on exploring is more the film side, as far as producing some movies, and also I'd like to do a YouTube channel, which I've talked to Billy about, because he's a whiz with that sort of thing, and we're actually going to make a short film together for his senior project in a few weeks. But yeah, I'm intrigued by the idea of doing something film production wise, and maybe having like I said, a YouTube channel or a kind of a central place where we can publish short films and film reviews and maybe some gaming stuff, and just looking at the other media. So yeah,
other media in the horror industry.
Yeah, and the horror, and just anything that's kind of fantastic. It doesn't have to be strictly horror, but anything that's kind of not supernatural, but the various genres.
this is a cool question. Did you choose the name Cemetery Dance all those years ago? Where did the name come from? Were there any other name contenders?
Yeah. It was I did choose it. The original name was Night Chills. I carried around a mock-up for a cover with Night Chills as the up on the masthead for several months before we launched, and I was pretty set on that until I heard from several people advice that kind of was echoing what was in the back of my head the whole time, which was that there was an awful lot of other titles, whether it be magazines, anthologies, television shows that had either the word night or chills in them. So it kind of, I was in the back of my head, there was that little voice that kept saying, you know, you're kind of just going to blend in, which we definitely didn't want to do. One of the first short stories that I wrote was a short called Cemetery Dance, and it was the word cemetery dance referred to the actual trees and the bushes in the cemetery dance that kind of came to life during this storm. It was a very atmospheric, not great little story, but it sold. And the thing that I remember the most about it is from the editor to the handful of people who read it to the handful of people who saw my contributor copies when they came in. Everyone commented on the title. Everyone said that's a great title, and I always joke and say I think it's pretty clear that people like the title more than they did the actual story, which is fine. I understand why. So when it kind of came crunch time to decide on the name for the magazine, I decided to go with Cemetery Dance just because it was mysterious, it stood out, and it was memorable. And it ended up being a good choice. I mean, I questioned it at times because every time I went to the bank, I got strange looks. Every time I went to the post office, I got strange looks. And then at some point I realized that that was a good thing. That meant that it was memorable, that meant that it stood out. But you have to remember, I was in college when I started it, and I still remember going to Kinko's to get a bunch of photocopies of a subscription form. And the girl at the counter thought I was actually throwing like a party or a rave or something in a graveyard. But yeah, that's where the name came from, and I've mentioned that story many times, and people always say the same thing. Night Chills sucked, and Cemetery Dance was a good choice.
How about the Dark Places, Evil Faces anthology? Anything to say about that real quick?
I'm trying to think which one that is. My brain's a little fuzzy right now. Ask him for more details. Tell him I'm senile.
Marky's a little senile right now. If you could just maybe like specify a little more. Thank you.
Is that the charity anthology?
When's the stand going to be available for order?
Hey Brian, when's the stand going to be available for order?
Next year.
Really?
Yeah.
Brian says next year.
Gotta get night shift out.
We still have to get night shift out, but I'll work on them.
Sounds good.
I'm always telling Brian, come on, let's announce this sooner. He says, no, we have to get so-and-so out first. He's the voice of reason, trust me. Even if he is camera shy. To go back, I think that was that question from Mark Lumby?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, Mark is doing a charity anthology over in England, and he asked me for a story, which I was happy to do. He's a smart guy and put together a great project. I can't remember who else is in there. I think Jack Ketchum and some others, but I was honored that he asked me. And Pete Crowther, who I talked about earlier at PS Publishing, is doing the book edition, and I think that'll be out this Halloween. So my apologies for not remembering the title right away. I think the title changed. I think that's why it threw me. I think it was titled something else first.
What are the two McCammon books you're doing in addition to The Listener?
I know there's supposed to be a little bit of surprises. I mean, The one is going to be an illustrated version of one of my favorite McCammon short stories, kind of similar to what we did with Stephen King's The Dark Man. But it's called Who'll Come Knocking, which was an older classic McCammon Halloween story. And I just always loved that story. So Brian found the perfect artist to do some really extensive illustrations for that. Aaron Wells, who has illustrated quite a few things for us, including some Stephen King projects. And I've seen a lot of the advanced art, and it's terrific. And it's just one of those little collector type books that I'm fortunate to be in a position to publish, and really looking forward to it. But The Listener is the one that everyone should keep their eyes open for. It's a great novel. I sat down at a time when I did not have any time to really read it, but I just blew through it in a matter of a day, and it's something I'm really proud to publish. And Rick McCammon, there was a store in Bel Air near where I grew up, and that's where I used to buy a lot of my paperbacks after my mainstay of Carol's used books. And then there's another one in Edgewood that I used to always buy from Maxine's. They both went out of business, and there was one in Bel Air in the Tollgate Mall, and that's where I used to always buy my McCammon books. And I never in a million years dreamed that 20 years, 30 years down the line, that I would be publishing Rick, that Rick would give me just the kindest, most generous blurb for my last collection. So to publish an original novel from Rick, and one as special as The Listener, is, again, it's dream come true territory.
And Amanda Carr says she was the first. She's been here since we started streaming, and she's wondering if you can do a little doodle in the front for her.
Sure. I don't have to put it on camera right now, though, do I?
I guess not.
Yeah. If Billy will tell you how I draw. All my animals look like bloated, like dinosaurs. All my people look the same, except sometimes I put like offensive physical attributes on them. But I'd be happy to doodle something. My signature is kind of a doodle in and of itself.
Yeah. Ooh, here's a good question. Would you guys be ever releasing a version of Cycle of the Werewolf?
I'd love that. That's actually one I'd love to, and I know I'm too late on this, but I'd love to go back and actually do a remake of that, even though I love the original. Cycle of the Werewolf was one of the first R-rated horror movies that you guys watched, wasn't it?
Second one.
Yeah. What was the first one?
Lady in White?
Maybe. Is that R-rated? I can't remember. But yeah, Cycle of the Werewolf, I would love to go back and do that with all of Bernie's art. Bernie passed away recently, as I'm sure you know. One of the nicest guys I've ever met. I remember when we did From a Buick Gate, and we came right out of the gate with our first Stephen King Limited, and it was illustrated by Bernie, and I just remember thinking, how is it going to ever get better than that? But I was fortunate to meet Bernie several times, and I know you've heard it a million times by now, but there's a reason for it. Just one of the most genuine, sweetest human beings you'll ever meet.
When is Night Shift going to be available for order?
Brian?
When's Night Shift going to be available? After we ship the Shining.
Which is very soon.
Which is soon.
We have to ship Gwendy first. Shipping Gwendy is uncharted waters for us. We've never shipped this many books, nor close to, and that's even after having our printer drop ship over half. Over half the copies. So, yeah, we're talking tens and tens of thousands of copies. And once that's finished, Dan and the crew will move on to The Shining, and then we'll announce Night Shift.
People, they still want to see Brian and Mindy and Dan and everyone. Brian just shook his head no at me.
Brian, you should just sit in my chair for a minute. Just because Brian came to work today wearing nothing but a Speedo, which we often do, we have various dress days here at work. And Brian made a mistake today, so.
He's rocking the speed.
Yep.
Everyone, there's a few people asking where they can purchase a signed copy.
Well, technically the signed copies were for the people who ordered during the first week of ordering. It's kind of a bonus offering. And I know the mean old people in ordering right now might tell you that it's too late to do a signed copy. We can't search through the stack of orders, which is literally like 2 feet high, to make an addition to your order. But if you order through cemeterydance.com and you specify, if you make a note saying you would really, 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 really like a signed copy, then I will do my best to make sure that you get one. The other way is PS Publishing over in England, which you will not want to deal with if you're a U.S. customer. But all their copies will be signed. So yeah, I would just say, make a note, and we'll do our best to get you a signed copy.
I know we had some people asking about shipping to the UK, so that should be an easier way.
Absolutely. Order from Pete Crowther's PS Publishing, and the shipping will be a whole lot more reasonable to England. I think we only have another 10 minutes to go. Once you guys all go back to your lives and lunch or breakfast or work or reading a book, I'll be sitting here for the next few hours until it's time to signing books, until it's time to leave and go coach Noah's lacrosse game today.
When is there going to be update to Stephen King Revisited? Any idea?
Good question, and question that Brian has been badgering me about forever. I'm going to have a great return to Stephen King Revisited essay, because well, at least now everybody knows what I was doing. It only took me a month to write this, but before that I was working on a couple projects, which I'll talk about, and I'll explain the delay, and my apologies. I mean, doing Stephen King Revisited has been one of the most fun things I've done in 30 years of Cemetery Dance. It just ended up being a wonderful idea and something I'm really happy we did. So my answer is, within the next month you'll have another couple Stephen King Revisited essays. And Billy just stacked more books.
Alright.
I'm actually sweating now, signing books. It's not good. Oh yeah, I'll slide it on the book here.
I can do it.
Yep.
Here. So this is the slipcase. I don't know if the mic can pick me out right now.
I'm sure.
Yeah, there you go. So that's what it looks like, and then that's just the case on its own.
Yeah, that's the sample that they sent us ahead of time to make sure it fits, so there's no unhappy surprises later.
There it is.
So yeah, a week from tomorrow, it should be an interesting week next week. I think like 5 more minutes of questions if you guys have any. Yeah, those are all signed.
Is Billy getting paid for his media work?
No. No. Billy's getting great experience for his media work, and I'm shocked that he hasn't done or said anything inappropriate yet.
Thank you for trying though, Brad. Any plans for a special edition of Misery from you guys?
Nothing currently, other than I'd love to do it. We have some surprises for 2018 and beyond, but that's not one of them right now. And you know what? We'll do this again sometime soon. We'll do another kind of a live event since this has been pretty painless. They've been trying to talk me into doing this for years, and I've been resistant, but it's actually been fun. So we'll do another live event sometime soon, and I'll make sure that Brian gets on screen and does it with me. I'm also going to do one sometime with John Sheck, who I grew up with in Edgewood and is turned into a wonderful writer and director and actor, and we'll talk about some of the stuff we have planned together. And I can guarantee we will both be inappropriate because that always happens when we get together.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Make this stack a little shorter. Is your hand cramping yet?
No, you know what? I've got an easy signature, so it actually, I kind of just roll through it. More likely I'll get my neck will start aching after a few hours, or my back, but I'll take plenty of breaks. Don't worry. I just can't go look at the palette. If I look at the palette and all the boxes on the palette, it does get overwhelming. So you kind of just stick to what's on the table and go from there.
How hard was it for everyone to talk you into doing a signing on Facebook Live?
They caught me in a weak moment because they asked me when I was signing, so I was kind of delirious. But I had several moments of misgiving after the fact, and they all said it's too late to change my mind. So, last 3 minutes, folks. So if you got anything else,
trying to keep up with all the questions. Favorite Stephen King movie?
oh man, that's really good. Stand By Me and Shawshank. Watched 1408 the other night. Really liked that.
Oh, 1408.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
Are you planning to do any more short story collections?
Yeah, I actually have another one lined up for 2018. Pete Crowther has kindly agreed to publish one. I'm pretty sure it'll be titled The Long Way Home, and that'll be sometime in the first half of next year.
In the next live video, could you guys do a tour of the office?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's actually a great idea and something that we've wanted to do for a while. We'll just have to make sure it's clean that day. But yeah, I love the idea of giving folks kind of the inside video tour of each of our desks and different rooms and the warehouse and all of that. So yeah, absolutely.
Are you excited for the upcoming Cell movie?
Yeah, I mean, I look forward to it.
Everyone is very much happy you guys ended up doing this and that you didn't back out.
Yeah, well, cool. Well, I appreciate everybody coming on and the questions, and hopefully I answered most of them. I'm surprised no one asked about the movie version of Gwendy's Button Box, if there will be one. Surprised 10 people didn't ask what Stephen King was like. But now that I put those in your heads, we're almost done. It's probably too late. Yep, one more minute. One more minute and I'm out of here, guys.
Can you say who the Pet Cemetery artist is? No. Brian says immediately.
Can you tell Brian says no a lot? This is what it's like. I come in, I have the greatest idea in the world, and I hear from the other room, no. And then when I can win Brian over to my side, it's usually Kate or the rest of them saying no. But we usually win. So, guess that's it. So, listen, thanks everybody for coming, for hanging out with me. That helped an hour pass really quickly. And I wish I knew exactly how many books I signed during this hour. What we should have done was a raffle and had everybody guess, and then whoever closest got like a free book or something. But I guess.
Why are you coming up with these great
Yes.
questions after we finish?
Yep. Because I like torturing people, so we'll have to do that next time. But I am curious how many books I signed. It's got to be at least 300-400 copies, I'd say, maybe more. So, all right, that's it. I'm out of here. I don't know if they take me off or Brian. How's that happen? Okay.